SAFSTOR matters!
Hi, I'm Marty Cohn, and welcome to episode 7 of SAFSTOR Matters, a program that features activities at the Entergy Vermont Yankee plant site. To review, in August of 2013, Entergy announced that it was going to close Vermont Yankee at the end of 2014. This occurred on December 29th, 2014. By mid-January, January 12th to be exact, all the nuclear fuel was removed from the reactor and placed in the spent fuel pool. VY certified to the NRC that the reactor had permanently defueled, ceased operation, and was permanently defueled. A lot of work has been done to transition the plant and the organization to support long-term storage prior to full physical decommissioning. In episode 1, VY Decommissioning External Affairs Manager Joe Lynch gave us an overview about decommissioning. In episode 2, Mike McKinney, Emergency Management Director, as well as Fire Chief Bob Strahan from Greenfield, Massachusetts, told us about emergency planning. In episode 3, Ken Swerner, who told us about the dry fuel storage at Vermont Yankee. On episode 4, we heard from the director of the Institute for Nuclear Host Communities talking about the impact of the closure of Vermont Yankee. Paul Paradise, the decommissioning director, came on the show in episode 5 to tell us about what was going to be happening. Then we had Eric Howes from from Maine Yankee talk about what it was like to decommission Maine Yankee 10 years ago. I should add, that was considered the gold standard for decommissioning until, of course, Vermont Yankee got started. And then last episode, we had Patty O'Donnell, who is a member of the Town of Vernon Planning Commission, talk about what it was like, or what it's like to host a nuclear facility in their community. But today, our special guest is Entergy Vermont Yankee Site Vice President, Chris Wamser. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you very much, Marty. Pleasure to be here.
So first, tell us about your nuclear experience. Give us a rundown.
Well, I counted it up, and I have 37 years of nuclear experience, which is sort of painful to say out loud. It sounds like a lot of years, and I guess it is. But I started my career in the United States Navy Nuclear Propulsion Program, which is one of the best training programs really for nuclear operators, maintenance, and engineering technicians. I spent 6 years in the United States Navy, and that's the program that is used to train the folks that operate the nuclear fleet, the submarines and the aircraft carriers out in the fleet. So after I spent 6 years in the service, I left the service, and I worked up at Knowles Atomic Power Laboratory in upstate New York for 2 years. At that time, I was working in quality assurance, doing inspections and things like that. And subsequent to that, I joined the commercial world. In my experience in the commercial industry, I have been a licensed senior reactor operator overseeing day-to-day operations from the control room. I've spent about 5 years as the operations manager at a facility, some time as a planning, scheduling, and outage manager, which was an interesting and different challenge. About 4 or so years as a general manager of plant operations, and since 2011, I've been the site vice president at Vermont Yankee. And that 4 years, of course, has seen a lot of change at the facility. So a lot of water under the bridge.
Well, but clearly someone who's seen a lot of aspects of the nuclear field. So last 4 years, site vice president.
Right.
For the audience and for myself, what does a site vice president do? What's the role of a site vice president?
It's fundamentally, overall responsibility for all aspects of the business unit, which is the site of their performance. So when we were operating, clearly a lot of focus on the safe day-to-day operations and maintenance of the facility, regulatory compliance, right? Regulatory compliance with NRC federal regulations, state regulations, other things, quality assurance manual, those kinds of things. Financial performance, it's a business, right? So we operate within budgets, we have budget goals, and to ensure that the site is being financially responsible and prudent. Those things are the fundamental things. Training of staff, when we were operating 600 or so employees, very specific requirements for the jobs that those folks do, and the training of the folks that operate, maintain, engineer the facility is huge. So training plays a tremendous role in how things are done. And then you have, I'll say, business planning 101, executing the company's business plan from year to year to ensure you're meeting the business objectives.
So has that role changed with SAFSTOR?
It has, necessarily with the cessation of operations and the removal of all the fuel from the nuclear reactor. For all intents and purposes, there really is not a nuclear reactor at Vermont Yankee anymore. There's an empty vessel that used to be the reactor, but there's no nuclear reactor there anymore. So the focus, the significant degree of focus on daily operations has been reduced commensurate with the reduction in plant complexity, plant operations risk, if you will. What has instead taken its place is a greater focus on executing our decommissioning plan and really getting into, in 2015, getting into the plan and making sure the organization functionally is working to execute the plan we want. We've seen a greater role in external stakeholder interactions. Citizens Advisory Panel, of course, is up and running, as you know. That has taken up quite a bit of time and attention, and really generally educating or interacting with stakeholders, whether they are citizens around the facility, state agencies, other industry groups that we're working with, is taking up more time that used to be focused on operations.
So here we are, almost a year to when the plant shut down. What do you think? How's VY doing?
Well, it's actually doing pretty darn good, actually. Like you said, we're about a year into this. Have not ever decommissioned a facility before. We have folks on our team that have. We certainly did a lot of planning for that, but haven't actually done it. So we established, like any business, we established goals and targets for what we wanted to accomplish, and we're seeing a lot of success. It's probably worth mentioning that the decommissioning plan really preceded Entergy's ownership of the facility. So when the previous owners, Vermont Yankee Nuclear Power Corporation, owned and operated the facility, they were responsible for having a decommissioning plan, decommissioning cost estimate. And when Entergy bought the facility in 2002, they bought the power plant, they bought the Nuclear Decommissioning Trust Fund, they bought really what came with it was the decommissioning plan that had been approved, and that included this concept of using SAFSTOR. So what has occurred in 2015 really is the implementation of the plan that had been in place for a very long time, and we're implementing it. Early this year, you may recall we removed some outbuildings that were no longer necessary. They were largely spaces that were no longer going to be staffed or manned, and to reduce heating costs and things like that, we removed those buildings. That was largely a once and done thing. We don't expect to be really doing that a lot in the near term. And more recently, towards the second half of the year, we have implemented a lot of other modifications to the facility to allow it to be much more fuel efficient. We have very large buildings that are no longer producing power, and we needed to do some physical modifications such that we wouldn't be spending exorbitant amounts of money heating buildings that are largely empty. So at the end of November was our last milestone for the goals that we had set for ourselves this year. We hit all our goals, and we've done very, very well. As a matter of fact, we've done so well that on a budget piece, we're about $5 million under our expected spending for this year. So that is $5 million that remains in the trust fund, will roll into next year and subsequent years, but will continue to grow because we got a team that has made some pretty good decisions and found economical ways to do the work.
So you've hit the goals and you've saved money as well.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: just switching. So you've been around, 37 years. You've been at Vermont Yankee. What's the morale like at the plant? I mean, it's been a year since we closed down. You mentioned there was 600 people. Now we're down to 300. How do people feel?
Morale, it's a different business for sure. The transition, was required people to dig in, I guess I'd say, and reset their thinking. But overall, morale is good. In 2014, when we announced the shutdown of the plant in August of 2013, and then largely in 2014, we were able to spend a lot of time with our employees. And thankfully, Entergy, I think, is a great company and really did a lot of good things for their employees. We were able to provide a lot of services to prepare our folks for the future. So everything from retirement planning, financial planning, real estate seminars, our resume writing, interview skills. We had folks from some state agencies. The Social Security Administration came in and provided seminars for our folks. So we did everything we could to prepare our folks for all the different aspects of what might be coming their way. Probably the biggest piece that we did was we worked hard within our own company to find employment for our folks that wanted to stay with Entergy at our other facilities. And to a vast, vast majority of our folks that wanted to stay with our company, we successfully transferred those folks to other facilities. So where we are today, we're looking forward to May of next year, making another adjustment to our overall staffing. And frankly, we're going to be doing a lot of the similar stuff. So folks come to work, they're professionals, and they have good attitudes. They understand what's happening, why it's happening, and how it's going to affect them.
And they're continuing the legacy that was set for all these years.
Professional, they're a great bunch of folks. They're just very, very, very concerned individuals. They bring nothing but professionalism to work every day.
Well, we're going to take a short break to see this newscast from BCTV that we found the day Entergy announced that it was closing Vermont Yankee. Pay particular attention to the reporter. Be right back.
Vermont Yankee will remain under the oversight of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission through the remaining operation, plant shutdown, and throughout the decommissioning phases. In addition to running the plant reliably and safely through the remainder of our operating cycle through the fourth quarter of 2014.
545 Live's Roland Boyden here. I'm standing in Hinsdale, New Hampshire on the banks of the Connecticut River, just across from the Vermont Yankee nuclear power plant, where news rocked the media stratosphere today as it was announced from Entergy Nuclear that they will voluntarily close their Vernon-based Vermont Yankee nuclear power plant at the end of next year. It's cutting loose a highly contested 18 years of remaining operating time on their NRC-approved and twice federally court-backed 20-year license extension.
This was really the last decision that we wanted to make, but we feel like we have thoroughly evaluated all the various scenarios and options, and unfortunately it's painfully clear that this asset is simply not financially viable.
The next step is to move all the fuel to dry casks. After the spent fuel is in dry casks, we will monitor the station and safeguard the dry casks until the fuel is removed when the Department of Energy fulfills its contractual obligations. Near the end of the SAFSTOR period, we will complete dismantling and site restoration.
Certainly now, our taxes will just skyrocket.
We've obviously had very strong disagreements in the past about the future of the plant, but our job now is to work together with Entergy and find a good economic future for the hardworking employees. That's who my heart goes out to, and I know the rest of Vermonters join me.
Now, this morning's announcement, which came at 8:30 a.m. to employees and shortly thereafter in a release, comes just after the appeals court decision to approve Vermont Yankee's right to continue operating, even in the face of the state of Vermont's own Act 160 legislation, which aimed at closing the plant as originally scheduled in 2012. But with the appeals court also denying Entergy's request for more than $5 million in compensatory legal fees from the state of Vermont, the Louisiana-based energy company looks to have the financial viability of their plant on their minds. And while a series of court cases, environmental licenses, public service board decisions, and other obstacles have failed to stand in Vermont Yankee's way, it looks like continued operation has finally met a nemesis big business has yet to find a way around: the market. For 545 Live, I'm Roland Boyden.
Welcome back. In this episode of SAFSTOR Matters, we're talking with our special guest, Entergy Vermont Yankee Site Vice President Chris Wamser. Chris, we just saw a news clip from August 27th, 2013, when Entergy announced it was closing VY. 2 years later, any reflections on that day?
Well, it was a painful day in terms of having to tell a group of hardworking professional employees that despite their best efforts at running the facility safely, it simply wasn't economically viable anymore. So certainly, not a day that I enjoyed very much at all, and painful for really everybody involved, but the right business decision, no question. I was, astounded then, and I remain that way now about the resilience and the character of the team. We made that announcement. What the clip didn't show, but what we did was we got our employees together in the school, the gymnasium at the Vernon School, and we had a meeting with them face to face. And seemingly 10 minutes later, I'm back across the street in my office building, and the employees were out front, and they were talking about how they were going to really rally and finish strong, and they delivered. I know that but from the time we made the announcement in August 2013 until we shut down on December 29, 2014, the plant ran continuously, safely, and frankly set performance records the whole way. So a tremendous team. But the business decision, as you know, is what it is.
So since that time, since the decision, since we closed, have there been any changes in terms of dealing with, we just saw Governor Shumlin in terms of dealing with the state of Vermont?
There has been a lot that has gone on. First and foremost, as you know, the state implemented the Citizen Advisory Panel process. We participate in that process, and I endorse that process. At the most fundamental level, number one, does it advise the administration, the governor, of things related to decommissioning. But as much or more, I think it's a forum for the local population, the citizens, the stakeholders to really learn about decommissioning. And I think it does that very effectively. We've had specialists come in and present on different topics, and I think overall it's serving a very important purpose for that. So that, I think, is good. Some of the other interactions with the state agencies within the state of Vermont, with the cessation of operations, as I talked about before, with the removal of fuel from the reactor, groups like the Public Service Department, their need to focus as acutely on day-to-day operations simply is reduced. And it's reduced as you would expect, commensurate with the reduction in complexity of what is going on there every day. That the Nuclear Regulatory Commission no longer keeps a full-time resident inspector on site. They certainly do inspect us, and they were here again last week doing that. But with the cessation of operations, the need for daily oversight is significantly reduced. And there are some other changes in some other state agencies that should, as time passes and programs and things like that, can reasonably be reduced to reflect the reduction in complexity and risk. There'll be less interaction with some of those folks. The Department of Health comes to mind. Other agencies, like the Agency of Natural Resources, wasn't as present in a day-to-day basis previously, and now they're interested in understanding what their role is, and when we execute the decommissioning, how we are going to meet their standards. And so we are working with them now to communicate, really to get on the same page with what our timeline is, what we see happening in the future, when we see happening, and how we'll ensure that we, number one, communicate with them, that we don't surprise them, and that we work together to ensure that we understand their standards and we meet their standards.
But we're also, because of where we're located, we're also part of two other states. What about with the state of New Hampshire?
Well, our relationship with the state of New Hampshire is very good. It frankly has been very good for a number of years. The state of New Hampshire, early on when we announced the plant shutdown, we started to communicate externally with all three states of really what we thought the future was going to be and what changes were going to occur. In the state of New Hampshire, that state understood pretty quickly the necessary changes in business, in particular the necessary changes in emergency planning, posture and program, both immediately after shutdown and coming up soon. And they didn't have any real technical concerns with that. So we spent time with them. They understood it. They didn't have any technical concerns. What they did ultimately, really communicate to us was a general concern with the economic impact of the host of the towns that they have within our EPZ, and they asked us to partner with them to find a way to transition those towns from the level of funding to something that would be reasonable in the future. And we were able to work out a deal with them where we were able to provide some funding that establishes what I would call a glide slope for those towns. So we were successful in doing that. And separately, we were asked to consider the economic impact of the closure of Vermont Yankee and really the reduction of employees living in some of the communities across the river in New Hampshire. And we were able to partner with the Monadnock Economic Development Corporation in providing them $350,000 as seed money for developing other business initiatives in there that would, and a desired outcome is that supplants the economic impact that we used to have. So we're happy to be able to work with those folks and really come up with a deal, an outcome that I think is a win for both sides.
Now that's in addition to the $10 million we've committed to the state of Vermont for economic development.
Right. And so clearly we're a business located in Vermont. When we announced the plant shutdown as part of the agreement that we would continue to operate till the end of 2014, the $10 million economic support for the region here in Windham County and the surrounding areas is huge. And I think there's plenty of information about how the state is implementing that program.
But as a corporate citizen, one of the things that we've been concerned about is the economic impact. We've been concerned about the communities, and that has, and we're also talking to the state of Massachusetts.
Right. So this is one of the other positive outcomes of the Citizens Advisory Panel. I was able to meet Representative Paul Mark, and now we are working with the folks in Massachusetts to see if there's not a similar program we can put in place, similar to the agreement we made with New Hampshire, that transitions those towns in our EPZ from really where we were to a reasonable transition that goes out 3 or 4 years. And we're in active communication with them, but we haven't reached a real agreement yet. But I'm confident that we will.
Final question. What are the next steps? What happens now?
Well, if you go back to the news clip that you just watched, the primary focus is getting the fuel that is in the spent fuel pool into dry cask storage by the end of 2020. So in the near term for the site, the next larger transition, staffing-wise and organizational structure-wise, is in May of 2016. We think we're going to make another change then. But at the high level, the target, the goal, the thing we're working towards is meeting our commitment to get all the spent fuel out of the spent fuel pool and onto dry fuel storage pads in casks by the end of 2020. A big part of that is obtaining the certificate of public good for the second ISFAC pad. Right now we're in that process. It's an extremely well-defined process, very formal process. We have every reason to believe that we will be successful in going through that. And presuming that we get that permit on the timeline that we desire, then we expect that we should be able to execute our plan to get all the fuel out of the fuel pool in 2020, which is a mutually desired goal, both external stakeholders and within our company itself.
As a business, we want to put that fuel on the pad and meet that goal.
Absolutely.
Also, as a business, we've committed a line of credit. We're putting up a line of credit to pay for that.
Right. There was concern about how that would be funded and really how that dollar amount, although necessary and in the plan, it has been in the plan. It's a necessary piece. It's a pretty expensive proposition to do that, right? 143 million, 145 million line of credit to execute that in the next several years would remove a pretty good percentage of the funding that's in the Nuclear Decommissioning Trust Fund. So we've agreed to use a line of credit to do that, and when we're done in the future, we will seek to get recovery from the Department of Energy. The Department of Energy contractually is obligated to ultimately take ownership of the nuclear fuel, not only from our site, from all sites. So that is the path that we will take. So we will preserve the trust fund balance. We'll use our line of credit. We'll pay interest on that line of credit, but in the future we expect that we will seek recovery from that, and that'll allow the trust fund balance to continue to grow better.
Thank you, Chris, for being on the show. My takeaways so far, 37 years, wow. That we're implementing a plan that was actually first created by the previous owner, so there's nothing new with that. And we've got a great staff, a bunch of professionals, led by a really great guy.
I appreciate that, but it is a fantastic team. So they're doing great work, and they're working safely every day. Thank you, Marty.
Special thanks to Dennis Cordell for writing the original music for the show that you'll probably be humming the rest of the day. Karen Wilson for all her behind-the-scenes magic. And a big thank you to the folks here at BCTV who not only help us in the production of the show, but also recognized us with the 2015 Best Series of the Year Award. Thank you so much. For all of us at Vermont Yankee, I'm Marty Cohn, and thanks for watching.